Welcome. I hope you've been enjoying the project so far, and I hope you are actually having a good grasp of how the authentication process works. All right, so in this video, we'll be signing a user in on the server. In the last video, we were able to undo the sign-in form processing on the client side, where we got the user's data, we validated data, and then we send the data to the server, and we also undid the response. All right. So now in this video, we'll be actually signing in the user on the server. All right. So we are going to go to our project. Okay. So we have our sign in server action there. And just like we've always done, we need to first validate the user's provided input on the server. Okay. So here we are going to have, oh, sorry, we are going to have, I'm going to have the sources property, I'm going to have data, and we're going to have error just in case there is a validation error. Then we are going to use the sign in schema to pass the users provided data, which we are going to call raw data. All right. So first off, we need to check if the validation was successful. So we're going to have a conditional statement. Then we're going to say if success is not true, then we are going to be returning a false response to our user. Okay, so we're going to say success is false. All right, and data is going to be raw data. Why errors? Okay, it's going to be the error we are getting from Zod. Okay, then we're going to format the error. Okay, that that should work for that. And then if this validation is successful, so first thing we are going to be doing is to get our email and the password from the validated data. Okay, so we destructured that. All right, and the first thing we'll be doing, this signing process is actually very simple. So the first thing we do is to get a user from our database. If the user exists in the database, we're going to check if the user is providing a correct password that is the same as the password the user used to create their account. If the password is correct, we also check if the user's account has been verified. So that's all we'll just be doing in this video. Simple and short. All right. So we're going to have a try catch block to undo the asynchronous operations. So before this, we're going to have a user variable. Okay, it's going to be of data type user row. We are going to create that data type. So we can come here. We can either use type or interface, any one that you prefer. So I'm going to call it type row. So what are we going to be getting from our database? We are going to be getting the ID of our user, which is of data type number. Okay. We also need the role of the user. Either it is admin or user. So we are going to have admin or user. Okay, we also need to get the password hash, which is what we'll be comparing with the user's provided data. So this is going to be of data type string. Okay, so what else do we need? We also need the email verified. Okay, to know if the user's account has been verified. So this is going to be a boolean value. All right, so now first off, we can just leave this like this. All right, and inside of the try catch statement, we need to get the user from the database if the user exists in the database. So we're going to have const, then we have a rows, which we are going to rename to user. Let's name it to user row. Okay, this one is starting with lowercase, unlike the type that is starting with the uppercase. So we need to import our database pool. Okay, so we are going to query our database. This is the structure of the object we are expecting. All right, so now we need to write our query. Okay, so we're going to have our query to go like this. Select. Okay, we need a ID, we need the role. All right, we need the email verified, and we also need the what else do we need? The password hash. Okay, we need the password hash. All right, from our users table. Okay, where email, we're going to be searching with email is equal to the user's provided email, which is going to be $1. Right, so we're going to have a comma, Then we are going to have email. I hope we got that from here. Okay. So that's that for that. That is going to give us the user if the user is present in the database. Okay. So first thing we are going to check is if the user is actually in the database. Check if the user exists. Okay. So I'm going to say if, all right, if user row, okay, which is what we are getting now, which is an array that is containing the user if the user exists. So if user row dot length equals 0, that means there is no user with that email in our database. Then we are going to be returning a false response. Success is going to be false. Okay. Data is going to be email and password. Email, all right, and the password. Email and password is going to be comma, all right, password. And if you don't want to retain the provided password in your form, you can just make this an empty string. All right, if you don't want to retain the provided password when the user submitted the form, it's as simple as that. But if you want to retain the password, you can just leave it like this. Okay. And our errors attribute is going to contain an object with the underscore errors. Okay, this is going to be an array. So we're going to say invalid email, or password, because no such user exists in our database, and will not be saying which of the input is actually not correct. Okay. Now, if our check passes this stage, that means there is an existing user with that email in our database. So we are going to be comparing the user's password. If the provided password is the same as the password that the user used to sign up when they were creating their account. So this is where we are going to check if password match. All right, either match or matches. Okay. If passwords match, because we are comparing two passwords now. Okay, so we're going to have a variable. We're going to call it password password match. Okay, so we're going to use bcrypt package dot compare. All right, so we're going to provide the password that the user just provided and the password that we have in our database. You can just get out our user here. Just so let's call this user. Just so we save ourselves that stress of destruction in our display. So we can just say user dot password dash. So we are comparing the newly provided password with the password that we have in our database. All right. So this is going to be a Boolean value. This password dash is either going to be true or false. It's going to be true if both passwords are the same, and false if the passwords are not the same. All right. So we're going to have if password dash is not true, password match, I mean, if it is not true, then we're going to be returning a result. So this is going to be invalid may or password. All right. That's if password does not, if the passwords do not match. Okay. So now we are going to be catching any possible error when we are making this asynchronous call. All right. So here we are going to console the error. So we have a console dot error. Okay, so we're going to say an error occurred getting user. Okay, an error occurred getting user from the database from the DB. Okay, we can as well log the error so that we can see what the actual error is. Then we're going to return a generic error response. So success is going to be false as always. Okay, and the data is going to be the user provided data. Let me see if we have access to email. Okay, we have access to it. It's before the try catch block. All right, so we have a user variable here. So rather than having constant, we can just let this out so that just assign it to that. All right, so here we're going to have a email and password. Email and the password. Okay, so that is going to work for that. Okay, the errors property, we're going to have our errors. Okay, this is going to be underscore errors, so it's going to be what should we say, this kind of a generic error. So we can say an error occurred during sign in. Okay, so we can say please try again. Okay, that should work for us. All right, now if all of these checks were successful, I mean if the password matches and if we have a user in a database, so that means the users provided inputs are correct. If we have a user with that email in a database and the password actually matches, so if all of these checks were passed, then that means our user is supposed to have a successful sign in. So at this point, we need to create a user session. So we're going to create a to-do here. We're going to say create a user session. This session is needed so that subsequent times when our user want to access some resources on our app, or they need to visit some pages, they don't need to resign in and resign in again. All right, so anytime our user signed in, we need to create a session for them. The session is what we'll be using to identify that this user is already signed in, so that they don't need to be signing in over and over again. So at this point, we'll be creating that session, but that is what we'll be doing in the next video. So after creating the session, we need to redirect our user to the dashboard. Redirect, we imported the wrong redirect from Next navigation. So after creating the user session, we need to redirect them to the dashboard. Okay, so this is going to be dashboard. All right, so that means the user signing in process was successful, and we are omitting something here. We've checked that the password matched and we checked that the user actually exists in our database, but we've not checked if the user's account has been verified. So before creating the session, we're going to be performing the check here. Okay, so we're going to have an if statement here. We're going to have user.email verified. So if this is not true, that means the user's account has not been verified. So if the user has not verified the account, we'll be redirecting them to the verification required page. We've created the page already, so we're just going to have the path. We are going to be providing the path to this redirect function. So we're going to say verification verification required. We've created the page. The page is expecting the type, okay, and the type is going to be sign in. If you can remember, you remember that the last one we created was sign up. So here is going to be sign in, and then the email is going to be the user's email address. Okay, so here we're going to have email is going to be equal to email. Okay, so that's going to work for us. Okay, so we can save that. And if you want to standardize this, you can use the encoder URI components. Either use it or not, it's still going to work. All right, so you can leave it like that. So if the user's account has not been verified, then we direct them to verification required page. If their password do not match, then we tell them that either the email or password is not correct. We're not going to tell them that it is actually the password, so that a stranger will not be able to guess which email has been used to register an account on our application. Okay, and if the user is not existing, we're also going to say invalid email or password. So that should undo our sign in process. So now we can test our sign in process. Okay, now I've provided my email and my password. All right, so let me first provide the wrong password. We are going to have an error response. Wow, that was successful. We are not supposed to have a successful sign in if the password do not match. Let me provide the wrong password once again. Oh, so something is not right. We are not supposed to get to this point. Okay, if so, oh, sorry, this is the cause of the error. Okay, we are supposed to await this. All right. Yes. So at this point, I guess this was a promise, and the promise is going to pass this test. Okay. So that is the source of our problem. Now we are going to test our sign-in process again. This is why it is very good for you to test your work every time you reach a reasonable checkpoint. Okay, so I'm providing a wrong password now. Let's see if, okay, so you can see that our sign up was not successful. Okay, so I'm going to provide the correct password now. Let's see what we have. My password is still not correct. Okay, this should be correct. Now we are directed to the dashboard. We're having a 404 page because we've not created our dashboard. Okay, so before creating a dashboard, we need to first create a session for our user. Okay, so that the next time our user needs to access the dashboard, they don't need to re-sign in again unless they've signed out. Okay, so in the next video, we'll be creating our user session. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.